let us the challenges that they face, and they will be able to introduce themselves, give us their age, and also the class they are in, probably the school as well. You are most welcome, children. I want to start with the same gentleman. I am going to be your speaker for this session. My name is Yusuf and Abati Opingobi. I'm glad to have you here to discuss issues to do with education in emergency. I want to start with you. Please introduce yourself. Give us your name, your age, and your class, probably even the school as well. Let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, everybody. My name is Akol Kongwal. I'm from Tika Primary School. I'm 16 years old, P7 class.
She's 16 years old and she's in P7 class. Let's go to the next.
All protocol observed, I greet you all. My name is Satya Johan from Rhino Camp High School constituency. I am 16 years old in senior 1.
16 years old and she's in senior 1. Let's go to the next.
All right, all protocol observed. My name is Faden Omega Dada from Rhino Camp High School. I'm 19 years old from senior 4 class. Good day.
Let's go to the next.
All protocol remain observed. My name is Samuel
Live.
from Wanyaka constituency. I'm 16 years old and in P7 class. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Atilo Nyok from Tika Primary School. 14 years old from P7 class.
P7 class, 14 years old. Thank you very much. The one in your hand can work. That microphone can work. Make use of that. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Samia Rashid from Wanyaka Primary School. I am in P6 class, 16 years, 14 years old.
All right. Let's start with the first speaker here. What and who would you want to become in terms of career when you grow up? What do you want to become if you finish school? What would make you become a lawyer?
The only thing I think is I continue with my education. I can reach to the level that I can become a lawyer.
Okay. What are the nitty-gritties? What are the issues that you think you need to follow that can make you a lawyer?
I think the issue I need to follow how to speak English very well. Also how to read in that follow that issue. I think I can do that.
Okay. Now we are here for the Children's Parliament. Before I go to the next member of Parliament, are there circumstances or you feel have hindered your development in education or the education of other children that you know within the community?
Yes, I really have them because some children in my community, especially my sisters, are not in school and they complete P7 and that was caused by lack of school fees. Okay.
During COVID, there was no school. Were there some challenges that you register as a person or somebody within your neighborhood register?
Yes, there was a lot of challenges. Due to COVID-19, members get pregnant, and that leads some lost their lives delivery because they were under age of that pregnancy.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to you in a bit to look at a number of other issues. Let me go to the next. Can you please pass the microphone to the next lady there, to the next member of Parliament, to give us an understanding of probably what you want to become in the future?
Probably when I grow up, I want to become an engineer.
You want to become an engineer. Do you have an idea of what to do to become an engineer?
I have what to do to become an engineer.
Yeah. Push it closer. Push it closer.
I should pay keen attention in following PCM, that is physics, chemistry, and mathematics.
Okay. Okay. Do you have somebody that you look up to so that you can become the engineer that you dream of? Do you have a role model in the community, within the school, where you live, or probably somewhere that you think you can become like him or her?
Yeah, finally, I have my uncle who is in Mbale. His name is Julius, and he's an engineer. So I like to take that opportunity to be his generation, to follow that career of his step.
Okay, so you have somebody that you look up to. Thank you very much. Now, are there some circumstances that you face, you as an individual, that you face, that you think may hinder you from becoming the engineer that you dream of?
Yeah, there are very many challenges, especially during the lockdown. When Corona broke it, there was closure of schools. In the closure of schools, we had a lot of challenges, especially teenage pregnancies, forced marriage. Other students dropped out of school, and also some teachers resigned from teaching and went into doing other different activities. And as a special I talk right now, we have limited teachers in my school because of the COVID-19. That took around 2 years, and most teachers lose interest in teaching.
Okay, you attribute that to COVID-19. Just in case such emergencies come in future, what do you think should be done?
In case of any emergency that comes in the future, the government should always have emergency budgets to make sure that if there is any emergency, teachers are finally recruited anytime to make the learning continue in any emergency.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be coming back to you to discuss more on that. Let me go to the next member of parliament. What do you want to become in the future, gentlemen?
All right, my dream is to become a doctor.
You want to become a doctor? Yeah. Is there some doctor somewhere or somebody that you look up to so that you can follow the footsteps?
Yeah, there is someone.
Okay.
She is a female. She's named Ruth. She studied in Morocco for 5 years, and she really inspired me a lot.
Okay. All right. Do you think there are circumstances or there are situations that you may face or that you're facing currently that may hinder you from becoming the doctor that you want to become?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we hear them out?
All right. About hindrances that can be an obstacle towards the dream I have, it's definite that every tomorrow can be built up into something successful from now. So now, if there are issues around now, that always works toward failing my tomorrow, and of course, it can contribute towards making me unsuccessful. Now, one of the things that can be a hindrance toward my vision, I have discovered that right now, finances must be in place, because without finances, there is no way I can make it. The institutions that can build me up, of course, they need finances. And I think I'm not the only person who can suffer this. When you look throughout the country and throughout the settlement, you realize that, like most, let me be strict on those ones who are refugees. You see, leaving your own country out of your will can make things different. It's far better if you leave your country out of your will and out of your own intention. But now, a situation with people like those from South Sudan who are displaced due to the emergency cases in the nation, and now they're all over the settlement. Most of them, like others, initially they had good jobs, but now because of the displacement, they lost their jobs. And of course, here they cannot continue with the employment. And you realize that in a country like this, in such a place, really, finances is becoming a great threat. And I think without finances, there's no way I can make it. That's one of it. So if finances are in place, I just believe and I strongly stand to it that it's possible for me to achieve my goal.
Okay.
That's one.
Okay. Can we hear the next one? Probably you said that one, there must be a second one that you think can hinder you or prevent you from achieving the dream that you want to achieve.
Still, to add on that, I have just realized, like, where I am studying right now, I have just realized it's a school that is not a higher name. You see, in that school, first of all, I've just realized there are very limited facilities. When you talk about even the teachers are limited. And moreover, I've just noted that even the government still come and pick teachers from this school and recruit them in other schools, not even understanding that these teachers are not sufficient enough, like to kick off, or maybe to make learning continue on in that school. I've even realized that in that very school, we really don't have a proper laboratory And of course, like dreaming to be a doctor, there should be a laboratory closer that I can always be attached to and I can move on with my journey towards achieving what I want. I've even realized, like in that same school, accommodation is a problem. To be sincere, that school at the moment, it has about
you're just saying that school. Does the school have a name?
That's Renocam High School, to be very clear.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Renocam High School, I discovered there are about 900 learners, out of which 600 of them are boys. And if you can just hear me now, the only accommodation place or the dormitory can only accommodate 96 boys. But I always keep wondering where the rest of the boys could be, and I cannot understand how they survive, and they have to keep on with the learning. So I definitely think if I may be one of them that can lose the space in the dormitory, it can also be a hindrance towards my learning, because in this place, there are limited schools. First of all, we're having Rhino Camp, which is very far from most of the refugees. There is one which is very far, which some people from here cannot access it. Now, what do you think will happen, like, if I may not find space in the school? And of course, it can contribute towards failing me.
All right, thank you very much. I want to go to honorable member there at the extreme end, the lady, to have an understanding of what you want to become in the future.
In future, I want to become a president.
You want to become a president?
Yeah.
Interesting. By the way, for your information, our guest of honor is a minister, and so you should be able to borrow a leaf from her. So do you think there are certain issues that may prevent you from becoming a president in the future?
Yes.
Please, let us know what those issues are.
The issues are when I am in school, when there are few teachers to teach me, when there are few teachers that cannot make me to become an engineer, so that I can use my brain to become the president.
Okay.
Yes.
So you think the aspect of the teacher-pupil ratio can be able to affect you and prevent you from becoming the president that you want to become?
Yes.
Okay. Are there other issues that you think can prevent you from becoming a president? That is all you think?
Yes.
Okay. Your friend here just mentioned about aspects to do with the school fees, aspect to do with the economy that is biting hard, and also the aspect of teachers not being enough. What would you say about that?
I would support that government should employ teachers to come and teach us so that we achieve our dream to become an engineer, the doctor, the president.
Okay.
Yes.
You think the government can do that?
Yes.
What message would you give to the partners that work within the settlement areas?
The partners should bring more teachers in our schools so that they can make us to achieve our dream.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let me come to the honorable gentleman here. You remind us with your name again and what you want to become in future.
Okay, my name is Samuel Kurachenganywa.
Simon?
Samuel.
Okay.
I would like to be a member of parliament.
You want to be a member of parliament?
Yes.
You are already testing the tip of the iceberg here already. So you want to become a member of parliament. What are those hindrances that you may face or you're already facing that may prevent you from becoming that member of parliament that you want to become?
One of these challenges is poverty. Especially, let me talk on these wars of South Sudan has led very many people to become poor.
But are you aware that there are members of parliament who were once poor, they worked hard and became members of parliament?
Yes.
Okay, so how would that be different for you?
That will be different because in those times, there are things that they do and they support from other people.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Go right ahead. Go ahead. We want to hear more of those issues that may affect you.
Yeah. In this poverty here, so this poverty has really caused us very many things. We came from South Sudan up to here. There were no schools, and the schools were in towns. So in the villages, there were no schools. And our parents cannot able to access to take us up to town because there would not be finance that they will use to support us.
Okay. All right. Yes, go right ahead. Yes, 1 minute to conclude.
The other thing is congestion in classes. The moment that we came here, the schools were few. and we were congested in classes. So when people are congested in classes, you see learning cannot take place because there will be other children that can disturb in the class and very many things.
Okay. How are issues to do with the sanitation in the school? Are the toilets enough in your view, looking at the school where you come from?
No, they are not enough.
Okay.
The school there in our school, we have only 3 classrooms and a bit two latrines for the boys and 2 for the girls, which is not enough.
Okay. And what is the probable population of the children at the school?
In our school, we reach something of 900.
900.
Yes.
And there are only 2 toilets, 2 latrines, and for both boys and girls.
Yes.
Interesting.
And also the other thing that also stop me from achieving my goal. One of them is some of the children in our class. We have this trauma. So due to this war, in this trauma, children cannot able to access school because they will have that fear and the thinking of what has happened. And they will not
psychological torture.
Yeah. Okay. They will be psychological torture. And the moment they will go to school, they will not able to access because they will be thinking of what they have been, what they have passed through.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that case, what should the partners do? Would you recommend probably a psychosocial support to the children in all the schools here? Or what would you recommend?
My recommendation to the partners is for them to employ people who can go out there and counsel those people so that they will be free from the trauma that they are having, so that they will continue in education and they will achieve what they want to become in future.
All right. Last but not the least, let me come to the honorable lady there. You will remind us with your name and also what you want to become in future.
Okay, thank you. My name is Atilo.
Atilo. Okay.
In the future, I want to become a doctor.
A doctor.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think there are certain aspects of life or conditions that are around you that may prevent you or somebody of your nature to become the person they want to become in future?
Yes.
What are those issues?
At my school, I will take to my school, Tika Primary School.
Please.
There in Tika Primary School, we have 3,000 learners in the school.
The whole school has 3,000 learners. Okay.
And the teachers are 34.
34 teachers versus 3,000 learners.
Yes. There, P1 to P4, the classes are not enough.
Okay.
Now there, if you want P1, you get 600 people in school.
600?
600 people in class for P1.
For P1.
Yes. But I only have 2 classes.
So that means each class has like 300 to 300.
Yes. And single teacher cannot teach 300 learners.
Okay.
Therefore, these teachers here cannot teach one, at least these learners to achieve their dream or to become any person. Now the teachers are only come to focus for the bright learners, and then they leave that people who don't understand once.
Okay, okay.
Now, not only this, but I have another one.
Please go right ahead. I want to hear all of that.
There in South, during the war of South Sudan, my father was a soldier. By that time, my father was, so that my father became late. Now my father cannot support me in education. It's not just stay at home, without do anything at home.
Put the microphone closer. Yes.
It's not do anything again now. Me, I'm in P7. If I complete my P7 now, I will not continue with education because no one can support me to pay my school fees.
Okay, okay.
Now, Also, we are two with my brother. My brother also is with me. And my sister in senior 3. Now my sister dropped out because no one support her.
Okay.
Now that they used to that, I have.
Okay. So what would be your recommendation? Just to wrap it up, I want all of you to give tangible recommendations. I'll start with you, Honorable. Your name? Gilo. What would be your recommendation to the partners, to the government, and to all those well-wishers, probably who are viewing us online? You should know that we are live on World Vision YouTube page, and that the world is watching us. What would be your recommendation? I want to start with you.
I will give you the one of my school.
Please look into that camera.
I will give you the one of my school. Now in my school, there are few teachers. I expect the government and other partners to provide voice teachers in our school so that they will teach us properly. And then will achieve us to become a good doctors in the future. Also, to provide the government and other partners to provide the scholarship for that to the learners that their parents are having disabilities so that they will achieve their dream.
Thank you very much. Let me come to the gentleman there. What would be your recommendation, just in a space of 1 minute, probably tangible recommendations? Please go right ahead.
Thank you. My recommendation is to the government. The government should provide security.
Security.
Yeah.
Okay.
And should promote peace, especially in South Sudan, so that the war will not continue.
Okay.
My expectation to the partners and the other parties and the NGOs is for them should let them provide scholastic materials for the learners so that they will continue in their education. And the partners should also build more schools so that children may access to education. And my last recommendation is for the government should provide people who can come and counsel those who are affected or those who have trauma so that they may be able to access education. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A round of applause for this honorable gentleman here. A round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. And nobody's making mention of the parents. Don't you want parents to do something? Please.
For the parents, I urge the parents, you as my parent or a parent of someone, you should able to struggle hard that you should at least support that child of yours so that he will continue in education and encourage your child so that he will become what he wants to become. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I want to come to the Honorable Member of Parliament here, the one in secondary. Yes. What would be those supports that you think parents, the community leaders, the various partners, and even the government can be able to give towards you to protect education in emergency? Please switch it on.
Thank you for this honor, for giving me this time again to deliberate what I have in my mouth. Now,
Yes, go right ahead.
Especially the emergency of COVID-19. The government was pronouncing that we should be studying on televisions, radios, and other things. And whereby even they are telling us to study on radios, the frequencies are not reaching us here. The electricity is not even here in the Reno Refugee Settlement, and we are having challenges in accessing our education. And also we are emphasizing on the things of media learning, whereby the media was even to access things like teachers coming to home and home learning was difficult because the location of our places are not even applicable in the documents, whereby they cannot even access us. And also, now like things of war, the government normally when there is any emergency of any conflict in the country, the government normally protects those parliamentary bodies by ensuring and protecting security, but forgetting of schools, and whereby schools are the most target places whereby people think that they are energetic boys and beautiful girls where they can take them to be adopted as their wives. Others, child soldiers and breeders, and others are also recruited as fighters in their sectors. So my main recommendation to the government is the government should at least extend the electricity up to the settlement of the refugees to make us access the education on televisions, and also should create frequencies that can reach us here. All this will be happening not only by the government but other partners when they put hand in hand to make sure that education continues in all emergencies. The other point is also the government should prioritize security in the school communities, especially when there is any conflict. The government should first run to the schools and rescue the schools first. They are going to rescue those parliamentarians who have energy, who have documents to go to other departments, especially with the young. We are the generation of tomorrow. If we are not there, tomorrow can never come. So the government should put the eye and the emphasis on we children who are coming to school, because we are the next generation, whereby if we are not there tomorrow, Uganda is nothing. And also, my next recommendation to the government should recruit more teachers, especially schools in the camp. Like, for example, in Rhino Camp High School, we only have one laboratory technician who normally assists us in all the practicals, and whereby when he gets tired, he just goes out and leaves the students minus having the practicals. Now my dream is to become an engineer. How will I become an engineer minus knowing the physics practicals and even not having any access to those other things? And also my recommendation to the government and other partners, they should have collective power. They should have collective finance from other sectors. And also they should have emergency budget to make sure that in case of any emergency, they can manage to replace anything immediately before the emergency passes, especially radios and other learning facilities like learners, books. Anything can happen anytime. So right now I call upon the government, the partners, the NGOs, all personnel present. I want to call upon that we should come and advocate for protection of education in emergency now.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Thank you. Let me come to the lady here before I go to the gentleman who will probably be able to wrap it up for us. What are some of the key recommendations that you think should be a take home for all the invited guests here and each and every one of us? And for your information, I want to let you know, this month, our guest of honor will be going to New York in the United States of America to talk about these same issues. So the issues that you're raising here are very pertinent, very key for her to go and represent our views. And your views here are representative of the views of the children, the thousands and thousands of children that are suffering in the same situation. Please, what are your recommendations?
One of my recommendations here is I expect the government and others partners to provide scholarship for children who have then disabled parents to educate their children, to put their children in school or support their children in education. I also expect the government to train people living in emergency areas in income generating activities so that they will raise funds to educate their children. I also expect the government to encourage power sharing to avoid rebellion, because I know what causes war is because if one is always leading, others want also to lead. For example, the one of South Sudan. It is only Dinka who is leading since South Sudan get independent, and they also have to allow some price so that they will also lead. That is why South Sudan will never settle. And that's why they're always fighting. They don't even know what is education, and they don't even know what they can support. If the government will encourage power sharing, I think that war will not continue. I think that war must not continue. It will be easier for the war to stop. As also war cause disabilities on some parents, and then those who cause war, they're just there enjoying. They don't suffer. They don't get any suffering. We are the main people suffering. those who are living in camp. And some parents, they are able to educate their children. Children just living in camp are not going to school. They're just there at home. For example, I have three sisters who complete P7. That was 2019. Up to now, they're just there, they're still at home because no one should pay their school fees. And this was one effect of war. Because the person who's supposed to pay their school fees lost his job due to war. And that uncle who's supposed to pay school fees also died. He was the first person to die when the first war started in Juba. And now we are the main people facing the challenges. They're just there at home, and I will be one of them also. After finishing P7, I will just be at home. And then if you are going to be at home, can we have a bright future tomorrow? We cannot have that bright future. We will just be like this. Can I achieve my dream? No, I cannot achieve my dream. And I will just be at home. And then education is the lifeline for children living in emergency.
Thank you very much. That is so touching, especially for me. I don't know how the rest feel, but thank you for passing that message to us. I want to come to you, Honorable Lady there at the extreme end. Some recommendations that you can be able to give to the people who are viewing us online, and also the invited guests, a number of partners, government agencies, and parents. What are some of the recommendations that you want to pass forward? Please, pass out the next. Put it on. It's okay. Go right ahead. That's all.
The recommendation I have is the teachers should teach us so that we achieve our dream. And I request government to introduce for us online teaching. Like in other districts, like in Kampala, if you see in their TV, right, in the evening like this, you see teachers teaching pupils, teachers teaching pupils. But if you come here in Renocap, you come from school, you go home, you just be staying. If your parents that go and teach, you be digging. And then others are there learning from studios. And I request parents to work hard to pay our school fees so that we achieve our dreams. And the last one is the teachers should teach us very well so that we become the president, so that my country will not suffer as it is suffering because of war. I want to become a president so that my country should not suffer. I want to make my country to be safe as it can. I want my country to be like others, like Uganda. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Lastly, I want to come to you, Honorable Judge, to give us your recommendation on what we should do to make sure that the situation that we are in, especially in the refugee settlements.
All right, before I go any further, I just want to make it very clear to everyone listening to me right now, and to whosoever is all over the world who will be paying attention to this event, that it's not a drama or an ordinary video that we're just making. It's a matter of fact and a lively reality. And the voices you just heard now, I can say my fellow parliamentarians have really spoken a lot, and it's really a matter of fact and a lively reality. So to whosoever is listening, to not just be maybe to entertain the wrong ears, but I would rather see it's so interesting when your ears itch to hear this, so that you can be able to give a contribution to make things well. Because it's all up to you who has the ability to either lead those who cannot have the ability to break down or to be raised. So now, straightforward into my recommendations, I would really recommend the partners to invest in construction of blocks in schools, because right now, when you go all over the settlement, you will just believe me that really this is a big challenge. And as I speak right now, like learners are learning out. So I'll ask myself, in Randacam High School at the moment, learners are outside the classes because of limited facilities like the classroom blocks. So I'll rather suggest and say, like the partners should invest in construction. And not only that, I would rather recommend that boy-child education should be supported. Because I don't know if many of you are aware that if a boy is to fail in his studies, he is more terrible and he will threaten the nation at large. So I would rather echo out my voice to whosoever is listening now that boy-child education should be supported, because most of the time I used to see NGOs and organizations coming, their support is mostly for girl child and they keep advocating that girls should be studying. But this time around, I want to say boy-child education should be supported. Because in schools, when you see girls are supported, they're given those necessities, but most of the times, boys are just left to do things the way they can. So be informed that boy-child education should be supported. And lastly, I want to also say that all of us should join hands together to make education in emergencies a priority by advocating for it, even investing into it, and even conducting campaigns for it. Whatsoever the emergencies may be, education must go on. And that becomes my final stand. Otherwise, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure having you here to discuss a number of issues to do with education and emergency. Thank you very much, honorable members of parliament. You may now take your leave. Thank you very much. Thank you. A round of applause for my gallant members of parliament that have ably represented the young generation. They have ably represented the children. They are the future. They have spoken for the thousands and thousands of children that are facing the situation that they have explained at this very point in time. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Without wasting so much time, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Paul King. He is the UNHCR. He's actually the lead for the Arua office. Paul King, sir, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to the students. You learners have inspired me. Thank you so much. Honorable Minister of State for Education, Resident District Commissioner, Local Council 5 Chairperson, the Chief Administrative Officer, the Refugee Desk Officer, the OPF Commandant and OPM staff, our partners, development partners, ECHO Country Office Representative, representatives, Director of World Vision, representatives of the Consortium for DRC, Save the Children, NRC, and YWIC, other partner representatives, local Council 3 representatives, UNHCR partners, and my fellow students. I'm also a learner. Good morning to you all. I'm going to take you through the context of education, the policy environment, the coordination, challenges, which we have already started to build on, and the existing opportunities. Uganda hosts 1,538,606 plus refugees and 44,286 asylum seekers from South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, and other nationalities. The refugees are hosted in 13 districts and 34 sub-counties. The districts include Adjumani, Terego, Kiriandongo, Kegegwa, Ubi, Kuboko, Isingiro, Lamo, Obongo, Majiokolo, Kamwenge, Yumbe, and Kampala. As such, we have urban and rural-based refugees. More recently, Uganda continues to experience a high number of daily new arrivals through its southwest borders in Bundibugyo district. The main reason for flights is insecurity in the country. Our engagement with the new arrivals also shows that they don't foresee a return in the near future to their countries. The new arrivals are limited to southwestern Uganda. The West Nile region has been receiving new arrivals, but at a lower rate. About 56% of refugee population are children under 18 years in need of education and other services. For this reason, and as stated by the parliamentarians, education remains a critical tool for protection and solutions, and is a key priority to the Uganda refugee operation. Education is an investment in the future. Education is developing and nurturing leaders, teachers, peace builders, civil servants, healthcare workers, parents, and people who will rebuild their countries. Access to education in refugee settlements, however, remains uneven and limited. Pre-COVID-19 enrollment data from March 2020 indicates that 57% in primary, 23%, 57 in pre-primary, 23 in primary, and 92 in secondary across refugee settlements remain out of school. This data indicates that more investment is needed, especially in pre and secondary education. The COVID-19 pandemic 2020 and 2021 further exacerbated these persistent barriers to quality education. Many learners lost valuable in-person interaction and instruction time and faced increased risks, as mentioned, including early marriage, child labor, and that's disproportionate affected. So it was very encouraging to see an overwhelming return to school by learning in January 2022. UNHCR and partners in the refugee response remain committed to safeguard children's right to education and are engaged in teacher supply, expansion of learning space, provision of school supplies, implementation of initiatives like double shift to accommodate, and also the capacity for building and training. The government of Uganda's commitment to protection and fulfilling education rights for refugees is evident. This is through the legislative and policy instruments that have facilitated implementation of education in emergency. The Constitution of Uganda guarantees the right to education by all children, regardless of their origin, status, or background. The Ministry of Education and Sports Education Act commits to providing education to all children in the country. Refugee rights are contained also in the 2006 Refugee Act and its regulations, which entitle access to social services such as education and health, and also right to work and right to establish businesses to achieve self-reliance. The comprehensive refugee response framework provides a more systematic and sustainable response for both refugees and host communities through the integrated service delivery approach in education, health, water, sanitation, and livelihood. In addition, the Uganda Settlement Transformation Agenda, the REHOP Strategic Framework, and Education Response Plan for refugees and host communities all operationalize the CRRF approach to improve the basic social delivery in terms of access, quality, and efficiency. The STA is incorporated in the National Development Plan 2, NDP2, which leads to the recognition and integration of refugees into national development planning framework. Uganda is also a signatory to the Djibouti Declaration of Education for Refugees, Returnees, and Host Communities, which emphasizes on creating a conducive policy environment. We applaud the government of Uganda for these measures. Your Excellency, the Ministry of Education has remained steadfast in providing leadership and coordination and actions to address the challenges of refugee response. This includes inclusion of refugees into education and in the existing education coordination mechanisms, including the EBPs. The Education Emergencies Partnership also ensures that humanitarian and development efforts are bridged. In terms of government leadership in coordination, system strengthening and overall monitoring at national, district, and Ministry of Education level with support of UNHCR has included the dissemination of district education response plans to 12 refugee hosting districts. These remain valuable tools for integration of refugees in district planning processes in terms of the opportunities presented by the Uganda Secondary Education Expansion Program, USEEP, the Uganda Intergovernmental Fiscal Transfers Program, and the Global Partnership for Education remain invaluable in protecting and addressing challenges in refugee education response. We thank the government for engaging in all this. All this, there are some challenges which were. One of the challenges, and I'll talk of three, is the availability of teachers. The education response is characterized by glaring teacher gaps. High pupil to teacher ratios are experienced. 1:82 in primary, 1:36 in secondary. These fall outside the national standards of 1:53 needed to ensure quality education. We have challenges in the learning environment, inadequate supply of infrastructure, as mentioned. These classroom gaps remain. The ratio of 1:131 remains outside the national standard, again, of 1:53. And these are required for quality education. Third is system strengthening. While Uganda is hosting the largest number of refugees in Africa, the local communities have shown great generosity and solidarity in welcoming them. But education services remain severely overstretched. The absorption capacity, the human and resources are limited. A high number of learners are still out of school and in need of education. There are, however, opportunities. The challenges surrounding teacher management provide opportunity to address and improve the quality of education through progressive steps towards achievement of national standards by increasing supply of trained teachers. The learning environment challenges provide opportunities to focus and strengthen safe, inclusive, and protective learning environment. And finally, the challenges around system strengthening present opportunities to ensure refugee inclusion into national education systems and national planning at district and central levels, and leveraging the much needed long-term and multi-year planning to fulfill the aspirations of the ERP. Your Excellency, the government's commitment to fulfill the education rights is evident. Through the leadership of the ministry and based on the government plans, we believe the ministry has the opportunity to overcome these challenges. We as UNHCR and partners pledge our continued support to our ministry and the government of Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A round of applause once again. Thank you very much. We are going to be having a plenary discussion after here, but before that, I want to invite somebody to come and speak to us one more time before we go to the plenary section. Ladies and gentlemen, Peterson Morton, he is the Echo County lead. Put your hands up for Peterson Morton. You're most welcome to talk to us.
Thank you. I was sure that introduction meant I should be short. So, Honorable Minister, distinguished officials from the Ministry of Education, OPM, and local district governments, all other protocol observed. I want to pay a special tribute to our young parliamentarians, where are you? On over there, and also to our young learners. And I hope you study as hard as they do, because that's the only way forward and what is going to really change your life. So I hope you are hard working in school also. My name is Morten Peterson. I work for the European Union. I work for the Humanitarian Aid Department of the Union. So we are not working with development per se, but we work in humanitarian situations, like, for example, situations. We are mainly financing, supporting a number of the partners. Some of you can see on the banner behind me, but also many other, for example, UNHCR, Save Children, and a number of other organizations. As the Union, we are very excited about this summit, which the Honorable Minister, I understand, is traveling next week to be held in New York. We have been following it closely, and there will also be participation of the European Union. I understand that later today, World Vision, I think, will propose or present some proposed transformations, which would be very interesting to hear about. It's too early for me to speak to them because we are waiting to see what the outcomes of the summit on Monday will be. For ECHO, we have an education emergency program that is, for example, supporting World Vision, also Save the Children, and a couple of other partners that is helping you with your schooling. I know it's not doing everything. We will never be able to do everything, but we are trying the best we can. We have a corporate objective in ECHO, and that 10% of our budget should be used on education emergencies. And in Uganda, we are doing tremendously well, actually, because in Uganda currently about twice that, 20% of our budget is used on education in emergencies. And one could ask, why is that? I think for me, the answer is quite obvious. We have some really good, strong partners, particularly the government, particularly the ministry, UNHCR, and implementing partners to work with us on this objective. We also, as Paul, my colleague, was hinting at before, we have a tremendously favorable policy environment for refugees, and we have had it, I don't know, for many decades in Uganda. I started in this sector in 1993, and I actually started working for UNHCR. And one of the first settlements I heard about in my career was Rhino Camp in 1993 in October. And already at that time, the Rhino Camp and the Ugandan refugee policy was kind of standing out as a beacon in the world. And I think we have continued that ever since. That's very much appreciated and acknowledged. Here in Uganda, you live in settlements. If you had been a refugee in some neighboring countries, you would have lived in camps, but you settle people in proper conditions with access to job opportunities, to work, to farming, etc., and so on, including access to education. So that's very appreciated. I think also Uganda was one of the first countries to embrace the comprehensive refugee response framework. Here most recently, and again, evidence to the progressiveness, I think, of Uganda and the way we work with refugees in this country. So we have already heard that refugees are clearly included into policy. Great. Refugee issues are also included into the, I think, forthcoming ERP2, Education Response, Emergency Response Plan. Great. If there was one thing I could wish for on a sunny day like this, Uganda, it would be maybe the full integration, not just policy, not just planning, which is all great and tremendously good, but maybe also in the final budgeting process. I understand that capitation grants are still calculated on the basis of district populations and not necessarily populations, plus also refugee populations. If we overcome the last hurdle, I think that will get another world championship in refugee assistance and response. So I wish you a very good day and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Thank you very much. Yes. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize the presence of the LC5 chairman, Terego District, Honorable Saka. You're most welcome. And a number of other guests who I may not be able to recognize at this very point in time. You have been recognized. And thank you very much for being with us. Pertinent issues being discussed, Honorable Chairman, before you came through, were young parliamentarians who spoke pertinent issues. They spoke to the hearts of the people. And I do hope some change can come through as far as aspect of education is concerned. You will be told what they spoke. And now we are going to have a plenary session right after here, and I will invite the full people to come right here so that we can be able to have a very fruitful discussion to be able to have a better sharing on a number of issues. And this will be about the 3 transformations for education and emergencies. This is what we are going to be talking about right about now. And that will not take so long, but we will be able to borrow a few moments to discuss this. And I think it will be pertinent to have the people right here so that when they are talking, people can be able to have proper view of the issues that will be coming out of them. Madam Winnie Nyandiga, she is a Global Student Forum person. You are most welcome. You are most very, very welcome. And I also have Mr. Georgia Porter, 100 million campaign right there. You are most welcome to the podium to have a very fruitful discussion on a number of issues. We'll be, like I told you earlier, looking at the 3 transformations for education in emergencies. Cleophas Mugenyi, Commissioner, Basic Education, Ministry of Education and Sports. Mr. Cleophas Mugenyi, he is the Commissioner, Basic Education, Ministry of Education and Sports. You are most welcome to the podium to give a very elaborate discussion on the 3 transformations for education in emergencies. Last but not the least, Mr. John Tereraho is the technical lead education at World Vision. Gentlemen, you are most welcome. And I must tell you, you look very smart. You can sit there. You can push there a little bit. And then he sits next to you. And then you can. I'll be able to give microphones. And that can be there. And we have 2 more. This is serious gender balance campaign. They have right in front of me at my podium. I don't have anything to say but to accept. This is interesting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this very afternoon, we are going to be having a very pertinent discussion on a very pertinent issue, and that is the 3 transformations for education in emergencies. The panelists are here. We will start with the introduction one more time. I did call them myself, and I want them to give, I want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves so that we can go straight to the issue that we want to look at. I want to start that side.
Everyone, thank you for having me. I'm Georgia, and I lead the youth work for the 100 Million campaign, whose logo is slightly bigger, which is a bit worrying. But we're a global youth-led campaign for the rights of every child and young person to be free, safe, and educated. And we work by empowering young people and children, students all over the world to stand up for their rights and to talk to their decision makers and advocate for what they are entitled to. And my colleague Winnie also works with me, but she's here with a different hat on today. But it is an absolute honour to be here. It is my first time ever in Uganda, and I'm very happy to be spending that time here with you.
All right, thank you very much. Let me come to the gentleman. I want to give the opportunity for you to introduce yourself briefly before we go right ahead.
Thank you very much, moderator. Already the younger parliamentarians who are here, all of them were aspiring for other profession except to becoming a teacher. So I want to urge my younger brothers and sisters also aspire to become a teacher. I'm a teacher by profession, and I'm happy to be a teacher. And one of the challenges pointed out was the lack of teachers in school. So if you don't want to become a teacher, who's going to teach you? You need to become teachers so that we address the issue of inadequate teachers in our schools. My name is Clopas Mkenyi. I work as Commissioner Basic Education. I also chair the Education Emergencies Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm Winnie Yadika. As my colleague has said, Georgia, I wear so many hats, but on this forum today, I wear the Global Students Forum. The Global Students Forum, what we do is we represent students and we amplify the students' need, both at the national and at the global level. So it's nice to be here. It's also my first time in Uganda, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome to Uganda. Next.
Like Dr. Cleophas Mkenyi, I'm also a teacher by profession, and I love being a teacher, and I want to encourage and invite the children who are in school to be teachers. It is rewarding to become a teacher. And, you know, when you become teachers, then the number of teachers to teach the children will increase, and it is by that we shall secure our future. So thank you so much. I am Paul John Terenaho, and I'm the Education Technical Lead for World Vision Uganda, and I want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. We will start straight away. I want us to start with you right here. I want to start with Mr. John, especially on these issues of the 3 transformations for education. Okay, all right. Well, I want to start with you, Georgia, still on the same issue, the 3 transformations for education in emergencies. Please take us through on that.
Sure. So the 3 transformations for education in emergency started off as a global partnership campaign trying to advocate for stronger financing. So asking governments around the world, development partners, private people to ensure that education emergency is properly funded. But how we went about this was by holding a series of consultations with young people, students, refugees all across the world, asking them what were their priorities for their education. And it really soon became clear that financing was a huge part of the issue, but not the whole issue. And actually, if you're going to talk about financing education, you have to also address the other barriers that are in children's lives. Financing of education also needs to be hand in hand with healthcare, with security, with livelihoods and employment. If you're going to support children in education, you need to support the whole child, not just one tiny part of their life. And so as part of this consultation, we led with hundreds and hundreds of young people, development partners around the world. We came up with this call to action called 3 transformations. Now, the first one is one that Uganda is doing very, very well, and we're so proud to be launching that here today, is really bridging the gap between humanitarian responses and development responses. Now, a huge part of this is because when an emergency hits, political leaders, governments have many competing priorities. There are so many urgent needs. And often education falls so far down the agenda that when the immediate crisis is over, there is not huge amounts of planning in place to support schools, to support learning to continue. So that first transformation is about bringing humanitarian and development partners together to work immediately. The second transformation is all about recognising, like I said before, the many different barriers. So it can't be enough that it's just the education ministry working on education emergency. It has to be the health ministry, it has to be the gender ministry, the labour ministry. We have to create intersectoral partnerships that are looking at the life of the whole child and young person. And the third transformation is about financing. Now, it might shock you to know that since the Sustainable Development Goals were announced in 2015, the world globally has grown by over $10 trillion. Now, as I'm part of the world and a particular country that really fails in its responsibility to refugees and to many other people, I think we have to stop. And also myself and Winnie will also be in New York this week, and we're going to be amplifying all the incredible demands, testimony, experiences that especially the parliamentarians shared earlier on. We have to stop pretending that the world does not have enough money to ensure that every child is in school. That is rubbish. It's just that money is not fairly distributed, it's not getting into the right hands. And so part of this 3 transformation is arguing that those with the more money in the world need to be paying their fair share to other countries to ensuring that you have the resources, you have the literacy, you have everything you need. It's not a case of charity, it's a case of political responsibility that many, many governments around the world are failing at. So this transformation, 3 transformations to education emergencies, is calling on all governments around the world to really kind of put their money where their mouth is and invest properly in the future of children.
Thank you very much for that elaborate discussion, and especially making us to understand what the 3 transformations in education for emergencies. I want to come to Winnie still on the same matter that we are discussing. Now, building on the 3 transformations in education, what does a very safe education in emergencies, especially in the situation that we are in? You heard what the children say. So what would you say?
So what it takes to have safe education, what comes into my mind first is safe schools.
Okay.
So for we, luckily, I don't take it for granted, who come from areas where we don't have conflict. Still, safe schools is very important. Why? It protects me from sexual violence at home. In schools where we have feeding programs, I go to school to eat. So if it is important in areas that don't have conflict, you can imagine how important safe schools are for children like this who are in conflict areas. So safe schooling is it. We have seen war used as a weapon against students and educators. That has to stop. So I would with the Safe Schools Declaration, which has not yet been endorsed by some countries. And countries, the world has to be responsible. We have to take care of these children. So what it means as the bare minimum, safe schools. Schools have to be safe for the educators. Children should not be learning under conditions where they're afraid of violence, they're afraid of attacks. Schools cannot be used as barracks by armed forces and military. They must be safe. for the students.
Mm.
Thank you.
All right. Maybe before I go to the next person, looking at the situation that we're in, you heard what the children say. What are the nitty-gritties, the particular issues that you think should be addressed in this matter?
So that's why I've said the first one, the one and the countries that have proposed the safe school declaration. That must be done. How do we have a conversation if we are not protecting our schools? So that is the bare minimum. So that is what has to be done.
Okay.
There are so many other things. I mean, first the school has to be safe. If children are going to run to school to protect themselves from home, so the school has to be safe so that when they run there, they can be safe from conflicts. If girls have to go to school, let's say to get access to sanitary towels, because it's happening, the schools have to be safe. But if children are running away from their countries, from their communities where there is hope, and then in school where they should be safe, they can't even get refuge there, then something must be wrong with the world, and it must be the safest decision.
Thank you very much. Education, school has to be the safest place for children. In a nutshell, that's what I picked from your submission. Let me come to Joe. Now on this issue, we are looking at politics here. We're looking at the political leaders. We're looking at a number of issues here. We've had people talk about this. So how does politics play in ensuring that the issues that we are discussing here for the big transformation for education and safe school declarations are adopted and applied in emergency response regions, especially by leaders, the political leadership?
I'm not sure whether I have the bandwidth to discuss the politics because I'm not very qualified there in the discussions of politics. But I am an adult Ugandan. I'm an education practitioner. I've been, I'm involved in education programming and a key participant, in the work that seeks to transform the lives of children, the lives of the most vulnerable children. First of all, I think we need to appreciate that education emergencies is a response to extreme deprivation caused by conflict, caused by crisis, caused by disaster, and it is, an attempt to reach those children that are on the edge of society. They are, they have in the first place lost out on their natural, the places of birth. They have been displaced. They have had a lot of trauma, and the children say it all here. So when we are talking about education emergencies, we are actually talking about special attention, providing special attention. We are not talking about providing education to the children, some of us here, because we can afford to take our children to schools that are safe, to schools that are good, are very good, to schools that are very well resourced. But we are talking about that commitment to reaching the children that would otherwise never have been reached if that special and deliberate attempt was not made. So so the political will is definitely needed to focus on those children that would ordinarily get lost. They would get lost out there. They would never have that opportunity. And they are studying. They are studying in schools that are not well resourced. They are coming from families that are facing a lot of difficulties. Some are even coming from families that do not exist because they are coming from broken families, separated families. And so we have so much to do in education emergencies. This definitely calls for that the deliberate response, deliberate commitment of resources and protection of those resources and ensuring that the resources are actually used. Children were here. There's a child who actually said that three sisters have not continued. They completed P7. And they dropped out. And she was saying she's also moving towards P7. She's not looking at going beyond P7. That really should be the attention of government. The attention of government should be on that child who is actually very vulnerable at the age of society. Is almost dropping out. She does, government needs to bring that hope. Now, it's not about government only. We even have very many players. For me, I work for World Vision, and I know the work we do in World Vision is really, it's supporting government. So if I were government, I would actually mobilize all these resources and direct them very well, coordinate them very well, ensure that they go where the greatest need is, ensure that whoever is involved in humanitarian work, in development work, the people, the organization called development partners, they need to be coordinated. There should be that deliberate attempt to ensure that whoever is, contributing to improvement of the lives of children in refugee settlements is actually addressing the critical needs. Look, the teachers are not there. The children are afraid. Teachers are not available. So that really shows that we need to think about increasing the number of teachers or creating opportunities for building capacity of those people who can actually provide basic knowledge to the teachers. I mean to the children. And so it's an elephant in the house, it's an elephant in the room, but we need that will to deal with it. It is piece by piece. We are not going to have a solution tomorrow, but we need to be very deliberate. We need to coordinate resources. We need to direct these resources. And I'm very comfortable with the policy framework for Uganda's refugee response. Very comfortable. I don't think there are many countries with such kind of refugee policies and frameworks. But we need to be intentional on implementing them and resourcing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. John, there on that issue. Now, let me come to Dr. Cleophas. Are there tangible, issues the government is doing? What is government already doing to ensure that education in emergencies is protected? Do we have some tangible examples that you can be able to cite for us? Go right ahead. What is the government doing as of now?
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, access to education is one of the human rights. Whether children are living in emergencies or in other places, it's their right to access education. Secondly, provision of education services is a shared responsibility. It's a shared responsibility in the stakeholder. It's a shared responsibility in that everyone, all stakeholders, has to make a contribution to ensure that children access education. As you are all aware, Uganda is a model worldwide in the issues of management of refugees and host communities. The issues of refugee management and the protection of children in emergencies and crises are reflected on key government policy documents, starting with the third National Development Plan, the National Resistance Movement Manifesto 2021-2025, the Education Sector Strategic Plan 2021-2025. But more importantly for us to note is that we have the Education Response Plan for refugees and host communities that has been designed in a partnership with all the key stakeholders, including the partners, supplementing government efforts to ensure the provision of education services in refugee settlements. Ladies and gentlemen, you will note that we also have the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework Strategic Direction 2021-2025. All these policy documents are geared towards ensuring that the issues of refugees in this country are well managed in line with the national objectives and international standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, meanwhile, the education sector continues to suffer during planning and implementation with the global hunger crisis. There is the aspect of food security, which is leading to negative household coping strategies like child marriage, issues to do with sending children to beg on the street, partaking dangerous work and other forms of child labor, or even joining dangerous militia groups. Girls, learners with disabilities, and other vulnerable groups are at a greater risk of sexual and gender-based violence, early pregnancies, like we have seen, child marriage. For students of fees-paying schools, financial hardship during emergencies often means that they are unable to continue their education. Even if it is free, there is still a lot that is required as far as this is concerned. There are issues to do with hidden costs, such as uniforms. There are issues to do with meals, textbooks. There are issues to do with the transportation that can easily become a burden or a barrier for attendance and eventually lack of completion. We're looking at a number of these issues, but as we conclude, I want to bring your attention to a number of the gaps. What gaps have we identified in adopting the 3 transformations for protecting education and emergencies, and also the same schools from a humanitarian context, government perspective, and also from the perspective of the development partners in this region? I want to start from the far left so that we can be able to come in this direction. You also.
And hopefully, if we move in this direction, we can kind of get more and more local, because I am not the best person at all to speak to the challenges. I don't fit into those in the region or in Uganda, but I can speak at the global level. I think
Sure.
all of those issues you've raised there, you've got issues of child labour, or gender-based violence, or livelihoods. I think with education emergencies, often these issues are so spread out, but on the global level, we see a lot of people, and on the governmental level, saying it's not my responsibility, that's that department, or that's that department. And actually, there seems to be a failure for any one agency to kind of take control of it and kind of play a real coordination role, which is why the first transformation in the 3 transformation document is about bringing those groups together. And I think, this is often is a case of there's not enough money to get on the ground quick enough when an emergency is. And that's why, Education Cannot Wait was established. And Education Cannot Wait is a global multilateral fund that's purpose is to fund education in emergency. So you mentioned earlier on, Paul mentioned the incredible work of the Global Partnership for Education, who mainly works on longer term grants for education in developing countries generally. But there was an acknowledgement that when an emergency hits, that money needs to get to the ground very, very fast. Otherwise, you risk losing the learning of a generation. The Education Cannot Wait was set up to be able to respond much quicker than the slow bureaucracy of government sometimes. So Education Cannot Wait can kind of get money to civil society organisations, to local partners on a much quicker basis. So I think in terms of the gaps we're identifying on the global level, I think there's an unwillingness for one department to take control and an unwillingness to talk to each other about these issues, but also there's that never-ending issue of money. And where does it come from? Who does it go to? And how does it get there? And I think those are things that we're starting to see progress on, but we're kind of really hoping for acceleration in the Transforming Education Summit in New York next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Georgia, on that submission. I want to come to Madam Uwini, still on the same question that I asked earlier on. Yes, you're welcome.
I think addressing on the government side, it is definitely lack of political will.
Okay.
So I know that
despite the fact that the 2 gentlemen say there is something being done, especially Dr. Cleopas, he said that.
Not in Uganda, but I mean when we talk about education in emergency goes beyond Uganda.
Oh, okay.
At least from what I've had, 90% judgment together with the Honorable Minister being here is that the government of Uganda has made progress. But it's not one size fits all. So we still have some areas where the government political control is missing. And I know that is one of the gaps that we have identified. Of course, the other one what Georgia has talked about is financing. And when financing apart from education in emergencies, education as a whole, we are already experiencing it being underfunded, right? The minimum threshold that the UN has given, most governments are not reaching it. So yeah, that is the other one. So at the top of those two, political goodwill and financing, which is an issue.
Thank you very much, Ms. Midi. Dr. Cleopas, still on the gaps, can we be able to look at some of these gaps that, in your view, will be addressed?
Thank you very much. It is true, whereas Uganda as the country is doing very well, we still have some gaps. And I want to repeat what I said, that provision of education services is a shared responsibility. And one of our challenges is the attitude of our parents, of our guardians towards education, and especially the education of the culture. As you are aware, the younger parliamentarians mentioned this. Because of COVID-19, a number of girls became pregnant, some were married off, and others dropped out of school. As government, we have launched the national campaign against teenage pregnancy, child marriage, refinement, and the promotion of positive parenting. We believe that we need to continue to create awareness, especially in the rural areas, to our people to appreciate the value of education. No country can develop without education, and especially education of the girl child. If you have an educated woman, then you are sure that your children will have a bright future. Secondly, we have weak supervision systems right from LC1 up to the national level. As you are all aware, the vice chairperson of LC1 at every village is in charge of education. The question is, do they have the register? All the children who are supposed to be in school at that level? Do they talk to the parents when they see so many younger children, boys and girls, loitering in the villages, not going to school during school time? Are they concerned about those who drop out of school, or those who are married illegally? So I'm happy that the chairman LC5 is here. We need bylaws. We need ordinances to fight these vices. And of course, when you have these bylaws and ordinances, everybody is conscious that there is a punishment in case they don't send their children to school, or in case their children drop out of school. And we need to, I saw the EO Madokolo here. What are the inspectors of schools doing? What are the coordinating center tutors doing? What are the head teachers doing? Right now, we are looking forward to the P7 candidates, the primary leaving exam. And at the end of it all, you will have a number of candidates, especially girls, who registered but are unable to sit for this exam. Where are they? Should we wait for them not to appear during the top sitting the exam, or ought to follow them up to make sure that they don't drop out? So we have a challenge of weak support, supervision, and monitoring systems, which we need to address at all levels. And I believe, as my colleagues have already mentioned, the issue of funding. We have all these challenges of inadequate teachers, inadequate infrastructure. I remember one of the younger parliamentarians saying that they have only 2 stances for a population of over 600 learners. Of course, if resources were available, we should be able to provide more center facilities. But because of inadequate resources, that's what we can afford.
and the children have continue operating within such environment at such a time when are able to provide for facilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John. Still on the same matter of the gaps. What gaps have we identified in adopting the 3 transformations for protecting education in emergencies and also save school from, humanitarian context and also from development partners context, government perspective in the region? You are an educationist and you're a man who has had vast experience in life. You should be able to give us your perspective as far as this is concerned. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. My colleagues have done justice to that. And I also believe that our young parliamentarians did this. But I want to add that there are 2 categories, there are 2 types or 2 ways through which children are excluded. There are those who are not able to access the economic situation around them, the social, economic, and political situation surrounding them is so prohibitive. It makes it difficult for them to go to school. They are very poor or they are not supported in any way to go to school. They are lacking all means and all ways. So they are willing, they would actually go to school, they would go there if they had the support. So they are excluded, they keep out. But we also have children who go to school and they remain excluded even when they are in school. They are in school 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they can't read. They can't read. 4 years. They come to school with a lot of expectation and they leave with a lot of disappointment. They come to school expecting to find a teacher, the teacher is not there. They come to school expecting to find a friendly teacher, and the teacher is hugging them as if they are wild animals. And is beating them, is battering them. They come to school to, expecting a safe and a friendly environment, and the school is quite unsafe. So these children are in school, but they are actually not doing anything substantial, anything meaningful. So they are also excluded in a way because they can't read, they can't write, they cannot, they cannot make decisions. Their level of skills, their competences are so low. So their time in school, somebody actually told us that they pass through school and school does not pass through them. So, they spend 7 years in school and there is no evidence that they have actually spent the 7 years. So in actual fact, they have also been excluded. Because they are not different from those who have been to school. They don't have anything, more special. Friends, COVID exposed the weaknesses of our society. COVID showed us that actually children were more safe at school than at home. COVID showed us that children were not even safe in their own home. Parents were marrying off children, and children were getting pregnant from their own homes. They are being abused. So it is actually serious. When we talk about education, we are talking about providing the safest way of securing the future of these children. We still have gaps. I always tell my colleagues, senior citizens, that the level of violence in our homes and in our schools is an indictment on the parents. It is an indictment on the leaders. It is an indictment on the adult community of Ghana. I mean, we cannot have a society where children are sexually abused by their own parents, by their relatives, where children are not safe at home. What went wrong? What happened? I look at that one as a huge gap. Just imagine dealing with a child who has been abused by their own parent. I dealt with one. She whispered to me. She was not safe to tell anyone. And when she told me, I spoke to a head teacher. It was not in the refugee. It was in the development setting. And I'm happy that I think I invested personal time and commitment to have that person brought to book. But it took me a lot of pain. A lot of pain. I withstood a lot of threats. And I was even opposed by the mother and the aunt of the girl. So those are some of the gaps. How can we have homes that are not safe for children? How can we have schools that are not safe for children? So the level of violence is just not acceptable. We must take a safe school as seriously as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John there. While we leverage all the transformation approaches, the Safe Schools Declaration for Protecting Education in Emergencies, how can we be able to, fill some of these gaps? How can we have education in emergencies protected? How can we protect the rights of our children to have safe education? These are some of the issues that I want to conclude with. I want to start with Ms. Georgia, still on this same issue, and as we conclude, you must welcome.
These are big questions with no answers. That we've written the time here, but I think we really have to think about next week, right? So in New York, just to be very clear, there's the Transforming Education Summit that is a historic opportunity. So all government leaders, ministers of education are coming together to discuss how to transform education. And this hasn't happened in 20 years. So it's a huge moment for the world to come together and deliver on a responsibility that it promised over 70 years ago. My colleagues shared, education is a human right. Over 70 years ago, the world promised that every child would have access to free quality education. It's still not happened. And I think for us, we need to make sure that the critical issues, all the issues that the young parliamentarians raised earlier, are not forgotten in the many, many discussions that are going to be taking place. I think the message, the call to action that we really want to bring to those world leaders in New York this week is to say you cannot transform education without protecting education emergencies. These are the world's most vulnerable children who have been denied not just their right to education, but to safety, to freedom, to justice. And if we cannot ensure they have education, there is no point talking about transforming anything larger. That is the basic requirement we have to do. And I know that myself, Winnie, the Honourable Minister, are going to be going to New York, kind of making that demand too loud to ignore, make sure it doesn't get lost in all the other commitments. And for my part, I think we can all do that. All these spheres, all the areas that we have influence over, really, really bringing home that education in emergencies must be prioritised, not just in times of emergencies, but beforehand. Some of the young parliamentarians spoke about there needs to be emergency budgets in place when crisis hits so they can be prepared. I think that is really the message we're going to be bringing.
All right, thank you very much for that brilliant submission. Madam Winnie, still on the same matter, how can we have education in emergencies protected, and how are we protecting the rights of these children? They came here, they said a lot of issues that actually they were after raising their plight. So how can we harmonize these two issues?
I'm actually so glad that you're moving up from education in emergency and the rights to now how are we going to protect it? The role of education in promoting peaceful coexistence among refugee and host communities, the role of education for children in emergencies, in social mobility, the role of education towards the journey to restorative justice, the role of education to so many other things cannot even be explained in this one panel. If we start, we won't even finish. So again, I'll come back to my first point that I said when we started this panel. How can we protect on the bare minimum? I know we're talking about financing and all that, but on the bare minimum, let the countries, let the world endorse, implement, and support Safe Schools Declaration. And even apart from that, let's move further and have mechanisms that hold countries accountable. We've had countries, for example, like Cameroon, which has endorsed Safe Schools Declaration, but we still see schools under attack. We still see educators and students under attack. So apart from us pushing and me calling on everyone here to join hands in asking governments to endorse the declaration, we must have accountability mechanisms on the bare minimum. That's what we're going to do to protect education. Thanks.
All right. And thank you very much. Let me come to Mr. John still on this same matter. The same question applies to you still. How can we have education in emergencies protected, and how are we protecting the rights of these children?
Well, I know we have international commitments for protecting children. We have international commitments for protecting children in emergencies, and specifically for protecting the education emergencies. I would like to refer to what Paul presented. I think it is the Djibouti declaration. So we really have all those commitments. So what we call upon national governments is, not just signing those declarations, but actually committing and implementing these declarations, having them to maturity and having actions prepares resources. So I want to believe that the coming summit, Honorable Minister, the coming summit should prioritize education emergencies. Should be one of the areas to prioritize. Should also prioritize safety of schools and make, recommit. I'm sure the international community has committed itself to safety of children in schools, but they need to recommit because the context we have is actually a bad one that has come as a result of COVID. So we need to, really make some kind of commitment and demand a commitment from governments to have resources that will go directly. I know in Uganda, of course, there's a primary education budget, there's a basic education budget, but like ECHO said, they have a specific amount of money. A percentage, 10% generally, but actually in Uganda, 20%. Thank you so much, ECHO. It's really a focus. It's a huge, that's a huge commitment. So if there was a commitment of governments to commit a certain amount, certain percentage, I don't care even if it is a small percentage, but it is actually there and there's accountability for that money. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we have collectively heard from the various stakeholders. We heard from the children, we've heard from the government leaders, we've heard from the community and also development partners. This is time for us to be able to have a very pertinent discussion on a number of issues that we are having at the forefront as far as education emergencies is concerned. As we conclude, I want to come to Dr. Cleophas, still on the same matter. How can we have education emergencies protected? And how can we protect the rights of the children?
Thank you very much. There is a famous saying that where there is a will, there is a way. Where there is a will, there is a way. Most of these conflicts are leading to influx of refugees in Uganda need to be addressed by the international community, but specifically by the African Union, IGAD, East African community. The biggest number of refugees that come to Uganda come from Southern Sudan. Southern Sudan is a member of the East African community. So the question is politically, what are the leaders of the East African community doing to address that challenge? Having said that, I also want to add that all of us who are here are not here by accident. We are invited to this meeting because of our roles and responsibilities as stakeholders in this country. So each one of us can make a contribution towards protecting
children in emergencies and crisis situations. We have a very favorable political environment in this country. We have the relevant laws, policies, guidelines, but the challenge remains at implementation. We know that, for example, the environment, which makes the child very insecure. You can see the representative of APC here. What is the police doing? There's a program called the community policing. We go to these villages and educate our parents and all the wananchi about the dangers of the environment. Mr. Terrell was sharing with us a story where the aunt was an accomplice to a crime. How do we address that? Uganda is a signatory to Education 2030, which specifically addresses the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of them is to ensure that there is peace and security by the year 2030. And that's critical if we are to address these challenges that are leading to what we are discussing here. So, you know, Christians go to church every Sunday, and the Muslims go to the mosque every. Yes. But the level of sinning, I don't believe it has gone down. I want to believe that it has gone up. But the priests and the sects have not given up. So I don't continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for the people here who have been discussing these very pertinent issues. And now, as my, I should say, discussers, as they read here, if there is one key question that somebody wants to raise to any one of them, that is welcome. And also at the same time, we'll be able to give opportunity to 3 other members within to be able to have a sharing, especially on the issues that we've discussed. I particularly want a parent to make a commitment on the issue that we discussed, or just any other RWC 321, a refugee leader that is in our midst. And also, if there is a DO, I think there's DO of Madi Okolo is around, or I will particularly ask him to say one thing as my discussants are still right here. If there is a question that wants to go straight to any of them, that is welcome. From the children, do you have any question to my discussants? Oh, there's one question there. Any other? Any other? Please come forward. Come forward. You can stand right here and ask your question with a lot of confidence.
Thank you. I've just come to ask.
Start with your name.
Okay, my name is Lesson Liberty. I'm in senior one from Renocam High School. Yes. Why is it that you are giving scholarships for refugees who are poor, and yet the parliamentarians today came to give out their problems about the refugees and also about the nationals? Now, if we are supposed to just give the opportunity just to the refugees only, now how would you think? How do you think the nationals or the host communities would also feel? Now, for us who are the nationals, so sometimes as we are growing up, we are growing. That's next time we shall not host them again. Thank you.
That question goes specifically to who? You should be able to tell us whose question is that?
It is to Echo.
Okay, I think you can take that. The question goes to Echo.
Thank you very much. She spoke from her heart.
You can respond and then you for response. Maybe the team starts. Let me give you my microphone.
You see, that was a very good question. It requires many people to answer it. Fortunately, ECHO do not give out scholarships, so I can't say it. But I think maybe the thing is with you, I don't know what level of scholarship you're referring to. Maybe secondary, maybe the program. It's very restricted, and there are all kinds of rules to it. But for ECHO, we of course not do scholarships.
I hope you've heard that loud and clear. Another response?
Thank you. It's a good question, and in the spirit of managing the peaceful coexistence, your question is one of the reasons why UNHCR has engaged in the Global Compact for Refugees, which means we are looking at refugees and hosting communities and pushing for our partners to give equal opportunity. That is why you will see UNHCR moving with development partners, bringing in governments, and an example is tomorrow, we're going to be moving around with some of our partners. We understand the shortage of funding. We understand as UNHCR, we cannot do everything. That's why we ask our partners to support us. Now, also remember, UNHCR is here to support the government. So we want to ensure government meets the basic commitments they have, and then we bring in additional partners so that we can go at par. There are opportunities also for nationals. Sometimes it's people don't know these opportunities. I'm coming from an operation where we had one staff looking online for opportunities for both Ugandans and refugees. In the country, they are looking at opportunities for Ethiopians and refugees. And we took some to other countries. People did not know this opportunity. So as UNHCR will come to you and try to show you the opportunities exist, which is also giving a kind of thank you to Uganda for hosting refugees by opening opportunities. We will discuss more. The opportunities there are limited, and ECHO talked about, for example, the AFP program. So we are opening up opportunities and looking at refugees and hosting communities at one. We will get there, but we are still far, basically because of funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, we like to say something about what we are trying for the long-term programming.
Yeah, thank you, John. One vision first is 15 years of development programs. And that type of program has normally been done outside the refugee hosting districts. For the first time, the history of World Vision, not in Uganda, but globally, we have started 8 development programs, 10 10-year programs in West Nile. So the first 2 in Omugo and Odupi, and we'll soon be rolling out 2 others in Onravu, in Yumbe, and Yuma is the next summit. Those kinds of programs ensure that we are matching both the nationals and the refugees. I know the language that is used in the refugee response is 70 for refugees and 30 for hosts. However, in the area program, it's 70, which means 30% refugee and 70% hosts, because we believe the hosts will be here much longer than refugees. So that's one of the ways we are doing to ensure that we integrate the host community members as part of our programs in the refugee space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in our culture, it's good manners that when big drums are sounded, a small drop is silent. So the answers have been well provided.
Provided already. Thank you very much. And there are some realistic threats that have been raised, especially by the previous discussants. I wanted, especially the DPC, to have a say about issues to do with the threats. That when the children are going to school and when they're coming back from school. One of the discussants said something on that. And also the DPC, the DEO, just 2 minutes each, you'll be able to highlight on those issues. And now I also wanted a parent or a refugee leader. Do we have any in our midst? Do we have any? Any refugee leader? Any parent? There's no parent here. All right, I want to start with the DPC. If just in 1 minute, aspect of security, especially when the children are going to school and coming back from school. That was one issue that was raised, and I thought it would be good enough for you to add your voice on that as the authority in charge of security and the property of, the life and property of people.
Thank you very much. My name is SP Wakaboksi. I'm the officer in charge, right now comes from refugee settlement. It means I take security within the camp. As you say, the students were opening, but they are well in the way. I want to assure you that the situation in as far as security is concerned, in the camp is normal camp. I had that scenario in Ofua 2. And I said my boys there, and they responded immediately. And another thing they didn't tell you, especially when they are distributing food, some robot was waylaid them on the way and they grab their ratios. I want to assure you that we are at the top of it. We have a patrol car, it has enough fuel, we have enough manpower, we shall contain that. So we have started containing it. So I've told you, yesterday we contained it, and I know those who are planning to it again anywhere within the camp, they have seen that we are everywhere. So I'm assuring you people, you are very secure. One of our role is to secure property. Any people die in this camp. So MC, your cry has already been answered some time back, and we shall continue providing security so long as we are still here in charge of security. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Afande. Thank you. And if there are these teachers who have been in charge of the parliamentarians, if there are some tangible recommendations that you have, that you think have not been forwarded, please, I'll be able to give you at least 2 minutes to be probably 1 minute or 2 minutes to be able to have a sharing on that. And let me have the DEO, just 2 minutes to have a sharing, especially on the issues that we've been discussing. And if there are some tangible recommendations that you do know, you can be able to forward those. You're most welcome.
I respect the protocol in the interest of time. My name is Shem Ofua. I am the acting district education officer for Mario local government. Before I say a few things on what we are learning here, I bring apologies from our cow who has been taken up. Then he told me I should come here and on my behalf and on his behalf. I think it is the pleasurable that I'm here in this very important occasion. I would want to say my boss, the commissioner, has actually said a lot of the things. Otherwise, he had already spoken. It would not be good for me to say things on top of what he has already said. But however, because they have already said one or two things, education in emergencies is real. I was with these children in a Rhino Kemi High last week when they did the debate. I got so impressed, and many of the issues they got out were real. You know, in emergencies are natural and they're human made. But the one here we suffer in another case, man-made, as people struggle for political authority in the countries where they are. And then the victims of the circumstance are the children who are now staying in someone's area. So I would want to say the Uganda government is excellent in doing that. We have 70 primary schools in the district here, and one sub-county that is hosting the refugees, that is the Rigo sub-county. We have 14 primary schools here, and many of these children are in these schools. What the government has done to support our education system is that we include these children as we are giving our population, and the government takes that population regardless of the country where these children come. And the IPF of UPE capitation is calculated regardless of the children, whether they are Ugandans or non-Ugandans. I think that's where we say the government of Uganda has done it very well. Also, it is double fold. I would want to say, because our education institutions are highly exhausted as the number of children have risen very high in the schools. For example, in Itika Primary School, the government paid teachers 8, but the number of teachers there is over 30. It means with the overwhelming number of children, 3,000 would not be taught by 8 teachers. The thing there, I also want to thank our partners. They employ our teachers, they pay them, and as they say, whether there is an emergency, education should continue. When we look at the 2 counties, Upper and Lower Madi, where the refugee children are, the efficiency ratios in the Rigo sub-county are a little better. The pupil classroom ratio, the pupil stands ratio, they are a little bit fair. And in the assessments done in the district here, recently we released our mock examinations. We saw the results in Rigo sub-county were a little better than the other county. That has been related to the support our partners give. So, as a district, we are committed to supporting all efforts that can make education to continue despite the numerous problems we are having. And we would want to, I want to say what that lady is saying. Many politicians think, yes, we gave the land, the refugees in our area. Increase the mileage for your support. It used to be within 30 kilometers from the refugees. Why can't you increase? So that the development of education should not be in the same area. I went to Wanyang. The school has the best latrines. But when I looked at the classroom, I only regretted, I wish I was asked them to say, the latrines are enough. Why wouldn't we talk together so that instead of the many latrines, why couldn't we build either houses for the teachers or improve on the classroom. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say it is very wonderful time for me to be here. God bless you.
Thank you very much, and God bless you too. Our time is fast spent. We won't be wasting a lot of time. Very gallant discussants to take their seats, and thank you very much for the messages that you've shared with us. Very, very inspirational. Round of applause once again. Round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. We won't be wasting so much time in our meetings. We have the DEO of Lamor District, Mr. Longonya Barnabas. Thank you very much for coming through all the way from Lamor. We appreciate, and we know that you love education and you want the best for our children. Only as we conclude, we have Mr. Solomon Osakani. He's the RDO for this region. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you and have a word with us at this very point in time. And you will also take that opportunity probably to welcome the LC5 chairman, Terego District, who will in turn help to welcome the minister, because my shoes is not big enough to welcome the minister myself. Thank you very much, Mr. Osakan. You're most welcome.
The Honorable Minister of State and Education, the Western District Commissioner of Absentia, the District Chairperson, the Chief Administrative Officer, the Head of Office, Chair, the Country Director of World Vision, and the Directors of the Consortium Partners, the Commissioner of Education, the partners and distinguished officials or partners present, the LC5, the LC3 chairperson, distinguished participants in the various capacities. Good afternoon and welcome to Rhino Camp. I need to say a little bit about the history of Rhino Camp and why we are hosting this year. In the 1990s, we had our president called General Idi Amin Dada. He was expelled from power, and during that time, most of the people from West Nile fled and went to South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo. When they came back, they had already experienced what it is to be a refugee, and they were very willing to offer land for the creation of the refugee settlement. Of course, in 1991, the late Cosmas Adiego, who was our Prime Minister, came to our district and requested for land to host refugees. That's when some of the clans that had fled outside of Uganda decided to give land for creation of final refugee settlement. And at that time, the names were given according to sub-counties where the land was offered. And over a period of time, the name has expanded to other sectors that have not found refugee settlement. Having said that, Rhino Camp, before we began the individual profiling exercise, according to our statistics, had 137,000 refugees. We'll only know the correct statistics when we complete profiling exercise. Of course, in the early 90s, the SPLA, SPLA, had a conflict with the government of Sudan. And so, in that conflict, many people fled. One day in Koboko, there were 40,000 people at the border, and they needed to be settled very fast. Otherwise, they would die during that emergency situation. And so people were brought to Rhino Camp. Then, of course, in 2005, there was a comprehensive peace agreement signed in Nairobi, and that led to peace coming back to Sudan, and the refugees repatriated. After repatriating, they also voted to have a country of their own, and in 2011, South Sudan was born as a country. And when so many people stayed there, there was still conflict, and later on, a few people started coming. I know Camp in 2015 had, I think, in April, 12,000 refugees. We had closed the Mveti, and most of the settlements had been closed. Of course, in 2016, around July, there was anarchy in Juba, and there was anarchy in the rest of the country, and so many people poured along the borders of Uganda. I must say that at Jumani settlements, the population of refugees was threatening to serve as host community, and that would cause a problem for peaceful coexistence. So we were asked here to identify one very quickly to absorb so many people. The DPD was created, Rhino Camp expanded massively, we reopened in Delhi. All that meant that the majority of people coming were women and children, and these children needed education. The Ministry of Education has its guidelines and policies regarding education. If you look at those yardsticks, you will certainly see the child pupil classroom ratio. You will see the child textbook pupil ratio. You will see there is the teacher pupil ratio. You will see there is a ratio of Latin stands for pupils, and in fact, it goes further to say how many teachers reside within the education or the school facility they have. And because there were so many children learn by play. So what do? You have to start early childhood development program so that children play, they learn, and gain interest to continue education. So in Rhino Camp, I think we now have 44 of those schools. If you look at that document that was shared, it will show you the number of people who are there and the number of schools. Today we have over, I think, 29 primary schools. And if you look at that document, you will see the population. We have, I think, 5 secondary schools. All of them are private schools or community-based schools. We don't have one for the government. So what I'm simply saying that as children continue to stay here, they grow older, and they must groom them for further education. As they become adults, they need to gain skills that they will use to have to live while they're here, and also to go and deal with their country. And certainly, that's what we're doing. But to cut the long story short, we need resources to do this. We need good government policies to do this. As refugees continue to stay here, funding will definitely dwindle, and then we turn around and look at this week. We say, can government of Uganda also help further in the international programs of burden sharing? Of course, international community will give support, and the government will offer land and security. But as funding dwindles, we keep thinking around, and that's where the Uganda Refugee Response Framework and programs come in, we are now gearing towards getting more support from the World Bank. We are looking forward to more support from donors, and we do appreciate whatever support they have given. And during emergencies, all these measures are extremely bad. In fact, the Ministry of Education just said, please close, you can't manage. But if we do that, what do we do for all this group of children, including host communities who are there? So what has gradually happened? We are improving gradually where we get resources. We are also asking the government of Uganda through the district to take up a little bit more of the burden. And we hope that with support from the development partners and humanitarian actors, we can improve. There is one aspect which certainly comes with the emergencies. People are forced to run away from school. Perhaps some children become adults, but they still want to have education when they're here. So the accelerated education program has helped them to gain some knowledge, to sit for exams and to pass. And that comes with another challenge. You need to equate the education certificates of South Sudan, the education certificates of Uganda, so that when they continue, the government accepts that this is genuine or these are acceptable documents. Of course, some people even run without a certificate or a report, and these are the issues really we are discussing. And we must talk about pregnancies of cats. Because COVID exposed us. It's not only in the settlement, across the whole country. We saw how many teenagers became pregnant. And this is a challenge to education in Uganda, not only education in emergencies and the settlement. I also remember what happened. These days, if you want to do interviews for a job, the employer will ask you to do aptitude tests, and you can decide to put a laptop there. And this is what happened. So many Ugandans were called to Uganda Management, Uganda Manufacturing Association's hall, and given laptops. So a few people from my village also went there, and they said, when you open this this equipment, these are the questions you answer online and send the answers. Some people just have to sleep and lay their heads. So when we are opening education, as children continue in education, we must adopt technology. Need to learn IT, need to learn computers. I think when His Excellency the President said we need to adopt sciences and take it aggressively is correct. So if you cannot use a laptop now, if you are given a job, who is going to be a secretary? Most likely there is no secretary in that office to type for you your document and to edit and do everything. So we need this knowledge. As young people continuing their studies, they need to be grown. Actually, some employers even go to the extent of demanding that you need to have additional skills, like knowing how to drive, because they are probably wanting to have a driver move around with you everywhere. Having said that, I'd like to thank you for listening to me, for God and my country. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the chairman of
none other than Honorable Dr. Joyce Mwadu Kajuchi, the Minister for State for Primary Education, the Commissioner for Basic Education, the Refugee Desk Officer, and all the commanders who are here, the Country Director
one division, and all the staff who are here, including the funders of this program, the head of sub-office, and office, and all the UNHCR staff who are here, all the staff of partners. I see Window International, I see World Child, and all those who are making contribution in the furtherance of education in our district, in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Wilfred Sakam, the district chairman for Terego. I want to start with an apology that I came late, not because I always like coming late, but because I didn't have the program on the invitation letter. I tried making consultations. The number which was on that invitation did not respond. And along the way, we also got bedeviled by a practice, by an organization that calls itself Bravo Sus. It just came to the district and they went straight into the community. That's their method of recruitment. They found some girls had been fetching water. We started running after them. That they would want to support vulnerable children, but I think they totally don't know the procedure. Quickly, the secret chairman of I called me and they asked him to bring them to the district. So we had a lengthy discussion and they had to be detained. Why? Because if you are on the road and you are not remorseful, you are confronting government, you have to be shown that the government is extremely heavy. So we had to work on it. I could have equally delegated this presence, but I have also taken a very strong stance that matters of education, I must be personally present in the myself. As the Secretary for Education, education has suffered most in this COVID period. You now have analogies like COVID mothers, and our lowest is 13-year-old girl of the primary school. So what can this kind of person do? If there is an opportunity like this to sit together, I always make it a point that I must be personally in charge myself. Honourable Minister, I am happy to see you here. I'm sure the children must have sung this for you. That they are happy on our behalf to see you here. Earlier, around June, I sent you a letter inviting you to come to Canada. That invitation is still valid. I'm sure Dr. Lucas did his part and submitted the invitation. Why did I invite you? I invited you because we have a number of these community schools that are run by partners with the support of the district. But we now need to transition these schools from community schools to become government-run aided schools. Very well built schools that we have done school mapping and established. Yes, these can be permanent schools with or without the presence of the refugees. They will be very active. And wanted you to come and appreciate a few of these schools so that they can be coded, so that management of some of the educational programs, including the national examination, can be made cheaper. Partners are spending a lot of money that would have been useful otherwise. Transporting candidates to very far schools, which is very costly. And that was the reason why I invited you. I pray you still squeeze time out of your busy schedule and come back so that we can see a few, not very many. That's the sample. I have seen the ECOCAN lead, Peterson leaving, but I also wanted to thank him. There was a time we had a very heated debate. He went back to Kampala when he was annoyed for, and I also remained in Terek when I was annoyed for him. This was the time when the schools were reopened. He came with the concept of tents, and I told him, Peterson, COVID gave us a lot of time for us to reorganize ourselves. I have been part and parcel of this response. You can put your tents there, and because of the numbers we have, you can erect a tent today, but the following morning, these children will have cut the tent. Why? Because the tent keeps the other children out of the class. They must be peeping through the windows. In order to do justice to themselves, what they do is to cut the tent and they're able to see the teacher. So the best thing would be we put permanent or semi-permanent structures. As ECHO, I have seen the respondent last week, Thursday, we are commissioning a few of the structure at Imbepi Secondary School. That's why I said he needed to be here to receive this word of gratitude from us. I want to thank the parliamentarians. I missed their performance, but I think they must have done a very tremendous job. Such an exposure is very important in the life of the children. Before I became an LC5 chairman, I was an education coordinator within Church Aid in the PDP Grace Force. One of the preoccupations I had was to squeeze resources that are not budgeted, savings to make sure almost every week the school is sending children to our work. What were they going to get? The children have a program on Saturday. The children from the settlements will be part and parcel of this. What does it take? It takes a very small appreciation for the host. Let's just say some water here. The vehicles are there. One Saturday, you take children from Kochia. When they come back, it is a lot of story they are telling. A lot of story that should be able to transform them. And what was the motivation of the children on top of the talk show? The children wanted to see zebra cross. They wanted to see traffic lights, which the world has not. They wanted to see the air thing. Those are things that make our struggle for retention real and meaningful. I want to thank OPM, some of your staff, and staff that work with me in the PDP. Godfrey is here. He's a very resourceful person. And for us, our vision, our education vision, the other side was we want to raise a future president of South Sudan. And that's the same vision we should be having here. That in the future, we should be hearing that one of the learners who was in the Rhino Camp, who was in the MVP, is now the president of South Sudan. If the people of Terego would have picked me out of the seat of NC5, I see our boys riding motorcycle to Juba. I would jump on a motorcycle and go to this president's office and say, I was the NC5 chairman when the students were studying in Uganda. You know what that means? The motorcycle will be confiscated. I will be put on a plane to return to Uganda with the cost. So that's a call on all of us, including the partners, to make sure all the programs that we're involved in, we give it value for money, so that our children will be able to learn and be better persons in the future. We should be, children, I heard when I came that my friend, commissioner, said the children were not enthusiastic about becoming teachers. In my opinion, the children gave a challenge to us. That is the challenge of improving the welfare and livelihood of our teachers. They have always engaged us as government through other means, but I think we now need to take a little more proactive processes to ensure their welfare